Wednesday, March the 15th, 2017, and this is your Barbados Today morning news update. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news at this hour, good news this morning for an elderly St. Lucie man whose dilapidated house collapsed last week. 74-year-old Lionel Innes of Fustic Village, who had been living in deplorable conditions for the past 3 years, has now been relocated to a temporary housing by the National Assistance Board. Yesterday, its chairman, Senator the Reverend David Jewett, told Barbados Today Innes would be transferred to the geriatric hospital in the coming days. Jewett, who went to the scene of the collapsed house yesterday, accompanied by NAB's Senior Welfare Officer, Karen Heelis, has expressed deep concern about the number of elderly people who are being exploited.
There are a few cases like this, maybe not to this extent, but a few elderly people being exploited, financially exploited especially, and they are in conditions that really needs attention. Okay. All right, I've dealt with a few of them already, and we had them removed. Those were not reported because we went straight on the scene and we dealt with them. All right, and I got them removed to better housing. All right. Unfortunately, we did not know about this. Okay. So we're now here for this one.
Embattled President of the National Union of Public Workers, Akani McDowell, has sued the Public Service Commission. McDowell and his attorney, Gregory Nichols, appeared before Justice William Chandler yesterday, challenging the Commission's decision in October last year to remove him from an acting senior position within the government service and reverting him to his junior substances position of Environmental Health Assistant 1. Now, the case, which was filed back in February, went before Justice Chandler in the number 10 Supreme Court at around 10:36 yesterday morning. An hour later, McDowell and his attorney emerged, but told reporters that nothing had happened yet because the matter was in its very preliminary stages.
I mean, my senior advisors in the profession tell me I'm talking to you all too much. Let me talk inside the court. Yeah, but his matter is before the court, and the matter in which his temporary appointment was terminated and how they purported to fill the post. So that is what's being challenged before.
Meanwhile, McDowell is scheduled to return to court on March the 31st. A government warning to employers who break the Safety and Health at Work law. Addressing the National Advisory Committee on Occupational Safety and Health at the Warren's Office complex yesterday afternoon, Minister of Labour Dr. Esther Bayasaku put non-compliant employers on notice that state inspectors are coming to get them.
And we are certainly looking internally at how we can ensure that the law is upheld. I know that there are still people in Barbados who believe that if they're not caught, they're not really breaking the law. And especially when it comes to labor legislation, I do realize that there are some folks who expect that they can wing it because nobody is going to get to them anytime soon. And we've been discussing internally how we can best use our resources so that we can disabuse persons, especially offenders, of that particular notion. Folks must know that we didn't go through all of the trouble of passing legislation, and as you know, the process of preparing legislation is one that is a very lengthy one, and it takes a lot of time on individuals as well because of our tripartite arrangement.
Now to the ongoing estimates debate in Parliament yesterday. The former Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, who introduced the value-added tax, or VAT, back in 1997, is now recommending that it should be reviewed. Owen Arthur told the House of Assembly that over time, the VAT had lost much of its original intent of covering 100% consumption to now covering 70%.
If the tourism sector pays a higher tax on its inputs, which can claim back against the tax, than it charges on its output, it must get a refund. And by that means, immediately on the introduction of a value-added tax in Barbados, $7 million was pumped back into the tourism sector. Although they did not talk about it, but they got $7 million in refunds immediately because of the differential between the input tax and the output tax. This government, however, sir, has now put itself in a difficult situation by widening that differential between the input tax on tourism and the output tax. The input tax is now 17%. The output tax is 7.5%. So the 10 percentage point differential that is causing this massive buildup in refunds that you cannot pay back. And all I'm telling the government that they should accept the advice, and even if the tourism people may not be pleased, that you have to remove such a wide differential and standardize the rate between the two over a period of time.
During the same debate, Minister of Culture Stephen Lashley sought to defend government spending of $6 million on its hosting of Carry Festa from August the 17th to 27th this year. Now, Lashley said this regional cultural festival was much more than celebrating talents.
Carry Festa, Mr. Speaker, as a mature Caribbean festival of arts, is more than just a festival where countries in the Caribbean come to celebrate what they have to offer. Since, of course, this festival would have been rearranged and restructured through a number of studies commissioned by the CARICOM Secretariat, this festival is positioned to offer the region an avenue for the development and the enhancement of its cultural industry sector generally. And indeed, Barbados has taken the lead by ensuring that we will host a festival that will provide the impetus for the acceleration of the cultural industries in Barbados and the Caribbean.
In sport, the Barbados government has concluded a partnership deal with the private sector to help maintain state-owned sporting facilities. Speaking during debate on the estimates of revenue and expenditure yesterday, Lashley, who's also Minister of Sport, said the public-private sector partnership will be rolled out in the coming months as part of the refocused policy of the National Sports Council, which manages 106 playing fields, 71 pavilions, 74 hard courts, and the National Stadium and the Netball Stadium. He also disclosed that the Wilde Gymnasium, now under major restoration thanks to a $19 million grant from the Chinese, is expected to be reopened in time for Carry Festa.
But the gymnasium renovation project is not simply a gymnasium restoration project. That gymnasium is being outfitted with a brand new international quality floor.
Good stuff.
That will allow us to attract international sporting activities, including basketball, volleyball, netball. All of these are necessary to create the impetus that will fuel further growth in our tourism sector under the ambit of our sports tourism.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Get your paper, get your paper. Only $2.25, $2.20. Who? For what? That's the best still news. I don't read about that on Barbados today since last night. That can't only can't do. $2.20. Who?
The Barbados Today, news you can trust.
We're back with news from the region now. The Trinidad and Tobago state-owned Caribbean Airlines has cancelled 10 of its flights both ways between Port of Spain and New York, and Guyana and Jamaica and New York. The airline announced yesterday that the flights would be grounded between yesterday and today due to adverse weather conditions in the New York area. Passengers booked and ticketed on these dates will be permitted to make changes to their reservations without penalty, subject to special conditions. And on the international scene, a devastating analysis from the Congressional Budget Office on the House GOP bill to repeal Obamacare has rattled moderate Republicans in the House who are uneasy about the prospects of voting for a proposal that increasingly appears dead on arrival in the Senate.
Republican leaders are now scrambling to contain the fallout from a devastating Congressional Budget Office report.
Given the freedom to make a decision that is consistent with your own economic interests, and you may decide not to buy it.
As the Trump administration continues to attack the veracity of the numbers altogether.
This is exactly what we thought the CBO would come forth with. They're terrible at counting coverage.
For GOP leaders, a hint of good news in the report, most notably the deficit savings, $337 billion over 10 years. and the projection that overall premiums would drop by an average of 10% by the time the GOP plan fully takes hold, even as that might account for older Americans who simply can't afford a plan altogether. But the top-line number of uninsured, 14 million by next year, 24 million by 2026, sparking new Democratic attacks and mockery of the Republican Party.
No one wants to claim this bill. If it's so good, why aren't they rushing to have their names on it?
And that's news and sports, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. Also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals or screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you, as well as Channel 99 on Flow TV and Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic day.